Donna's World. Hello everyone, welcome to Donna's World. Thank God it's Friday. Well, last week I did a very sort of sketchy talk on retirement. Sketchy, scanty, not much content. And I said I was going to follow up with more talk about retirement based on responses to last week's video. Because in last week's video, I asked you to send me in your thoughts and your feelings about this very important topic, which a lot of Donna's World viewers have said they want me to delve into, and which is of interest to everybody in the whole world, because we're all going to get old and retire at some point, or at least be expected to retire, or refuse to retire. But the retirement issue is going to come up in everybody's life at some point or another if you live long enough. Okay? So, got lots of really interesting responses from viewers. And I thank you so much for taking the trouble to share your thoughts with me. It's great to know where you're coming from and where you are in your lives at the moment. And also another thing is that we're going to try and be a little bit more interactive in future. Apologies to the many people who have written to me via YouTube or other social media platforms in the past few months, expressing views that are very valuable, very interesting, very useful in terms of advice and insights. You know, apologies to those we've not directly responded to, because there are so many, and sometimes I get overwhelmed. So my new policy is, as much as possible, to quote people who have taken the trouble to write in and express their views or share their thoughts, unless, of course, it's something very private. And, you know, if you want to be mentioned properly, you need to give your full name. Otherwise, you know, it's very difficult to quote somebody who only uses a kind of nickname when they respond. Anyway, so I'm going to start with my aunt. Her name is Georgiana Ngeri Wanga. She's a Nigerian woman, very distinguished. We're obviously from the same part of the country, so she is my aunt. And this is what she had to say. I'm always very touched when people who know me personally bother to get back to me in public fora, because, you know, they could talk to me anytime, but it's nice that they try to reach me in a bigger arena. And she said about last week's video, which, by the way, I'm so sorry, there were some technical hitches. The editing was awful, but, you know, I hope we will do better in future. We've certainly done better in the past. Okay, so from Auntie Georgiana. As usual, your talk on retirement was interesting, and I agree that it is not a very popular topic in our country, where people are often reluctant to retire. I have been retired for over a decade, and I'm having a great time engaging in activities of my choice, such as golfing, traveling to various parts of the world to attend Rotary International conventions, and visiting my children abroad, writing my memoirs and doing some charity work with street children through an NGO and in collaboration with the Sisters of Charity, which is a religious organization. However, for one to enjoy one's retirement, adequate preparation is required to ensure for financial comfort. I was lucky to have worked in the United Nations agency, UNICEF, where we were given pre-retirement training, which equipped us to plan effectively for our retirement through investment, purchasing or building retirement homes, and so on. It was made very clear to us early in our career that retirement without adequate preparation could be miserable. So the reason I chose that response to read out word for word is because it kind of covers all the bases, all the things that worry people. Is, you know, how are they going to spend their time? Do they have enough money to just stop working, and how are they going to cope? And, you know, obviously, Auntie Jiana had a privilege in the sense that she worked for an international organization, the United Nations, that gave her plenty of planning, not to mention some kind of financial stability to cushion her in old age. So let's turn to some of the other responses I've had from other Don't Use Words viewers. There's a lady called Lynn Williams, and she says she loves being retired and has never been so busy. The amount of charity work she does gives her a huge social life, and the freedom to say yes to things that interest her and no to everything else is great. Then there's a lady called Heather Gillette, and she finds the freedom of retirement allows her to be totally herself and pursue all of the interests she never had time for when she was working and raising a family. She says, I love structuring my days myself and not having to live according to the expectations of others. If a person is secure enough in who they are and remains curious enough and has a love of lifelong learning, retirement is the icing on the cake of a life well lived. I love that. Retirement is the icing on the cake of a life well lived. And by the way, P.S., the quality of one's relationships is greatly enhanced in retirement. So I'm going to take a pause there and say, well, it's interesting that Heather made that point, because some people say that their relationship actually deteriorates when they stop working or their spouse stops working. I can't name any names, obviously, but a number of women have told me that they've been utterly frustrated and depressed since their husbands retired. Because before, the guy would leave in the morning and, kiss you goodbye and wave goodbye. You wouldn't see him again till the evening. And often he would go on business trips or even work at weekends or in the evenings. And now all of a sudden he's under your feet all the time. That's how some women see it, okay? It's like for some people, the retirement of a spouse is a period of purgatory where presumably they could then only take their husbands in small doses, and now they have to deal with them all the time. So I would say to any man who has retired, you've also got to be aware that, your wife may not necessarily show it or say it to your face, but you've got to make yourself a bit interesting, and you can't just slouch around the house all the time, getting under her feet and getting on her nerves. Men also have to think of ways to make their retirement fulfilling, not just for them, but, sort of like nice for everybody around them. And this leads me to another point that's quite important. A lot of men take retirement as such a failure, such an ending, rather than a beginning, that they become deeply depressed. And that's why some of them hang around the house moping and irritating their wives. They don't see retirement as a positive thing, as the beginning of a new life, new opportunities, as a kind of freedom, liberation from the day-to-day grind of work. And I was talking to someone who works for an international oil company where the retirement age used to be 55. I think it's 60 now. And he said you would be amazed how many men would die within 2 or 3 years of being told, okay, it's over. Thank you very much. Here's your gold watch. Here's your pension. Bye-bye. So it seems that retirement is sort of it's much deeper than whether you have enough money. Because obviously, if you work for a company that takes good care of you and pays you good money to do nothing for the rest of your life, and that money may either be, you may have contributed to your pension fund, or it might just be a kind of gift from your employers, because, obviously there are organizations where you have to contribute to your pension, and then there are organizations where you don't. It's different everywhere. But, so for such men, and I say men specifically, because I've not heard of women suffering from this syndrome or problem. The day they say goodbye to the office is the day they start to feel worthless, which is strange because they would in many instances have done many useful things in their lives and, had children who are healthy and successful, and they themselves have been successful in their own ways. But once you tell them to stop working, they feel like nothing. And long story short, some of them actually literally mope themselves to death. I'm not talking about suicide here, but according to my friend who worked for the oil company, very, very, very high percentage of people just going a couple of years after retirement, because I guess I don't know, can you will yourself to death? Can you feel so meh that you just can't carry on and your body just starts shutting down. Anyway, according to my friend, there are people who respond to retirement by dying within a couple of years. That's really, really sad. And if anybody knows of a case like that and wants to talk about it, please get in touch with me, because I would like to know whether you can actually lose the will to live simply because you work, or is it a coincidence that some of these men just, maybe even if they carried on working, they'd have had a stroke or heart attack anyway. So that's something, it's something to do with the mind, body, soul connection, is how important is the whole person? Can your state of mind affect you physically to the point where you give up and you just pass on because you just don't want to be around anymore? And if that is the case, how sad that lack of a steady job or an office to go to or an oil rig or wherever you worked, how sad that that should be the case. So if anybody is married to a man who's going through that depression because of everything I've said so far, please get in touch, because I think one of the things that we can do on this channel, on this Donu's World, is we can talk about all these emotional and psychological issues, and maybe even over time, recommend different types of therapy and or self-therapy or professional therapy. So, let me know if you know anybody in that situation or if you're married to one. Another point that was made to me by some people who contacted me, not directly through YouTube, but people who knew me personally, so they sent me text messages. And some of them said that they also knew men who falsified their ages so that they could work an extra few years. That was actually, I used to work for a big company, I won't name it, at the beginning of when I left university. And there had been a civil war in Nigeria. So a lot of the filing system was messed up, and a lot of people had left to fight in the war. They died in the war, or there was a lot of disruption caused by the Civil War, which ended in 1970. Well, I think it was 66 to 70. And so I was working, that one of my first jobs was working for a personnel manager in this company. So we had to go through all the files, and a lot of files had been displaced because some of their offices, their regional offices, were in a war zone. And so people had to redeclare their ages, if you understand what I mean. So, they entered the job with birth certificates, but their files had gone missing, so they didn't have birth certificates anymore. So they had to redeclare their ages. I think it's called an affidavit or a declaration of age or whatever. And it was amazing how many of them knocked several years off their ages. And how do we know this? We know this because, people have classmates, people have people who are in school with them, and people say things like, he's never 45, he's 55. Or, kind of, who does he think he's kidding? So a lot of men falsified their ages so they could work for longer. So that's another thing that's very, very Nigerian. From the top to the bottom, people are always falsifying their ages, purely so they can be regarded as eligible to work for longer. I said it last week, it's not very common here. People generally do not like to people don't generally like to stop working. And I was thinking about why. And it's not that Nigerians are natural workaholics. I think one of the hidden reasons is that there's no welfare state here. And so anybody who's got a halfway decent job becomes responsible for their extended family, not just for their own wife or children or husband, for their cousins and their uncles and aunts, people often who are much poorer and need help. Because, you can't just sort of like get a welfare check or get free housing if you're poor here. You rely on family. Occasionally the churches, but, more family. I mean, I know that my late father, paid school fees for loads and loads of children. And my sister and myself have set up a foundation, and we're putting 7 children from our village through school, because there is no proper welfare system here. There's no free medicals, no free education, no free housing. if you're poor, you're really, really, you really are on your own unless you have relatives who can, chip in and provide a safety net. So I guess that's one of the reasons that Nigerians don't like to retire, because when you retire, your ability to take care of your extended family is drastically reduced, even if you have a good pension. So, let me just quickly run through some of the other comments we've received, because it's just nice. Well, there's no name attached to this, just a kind of email address or code. I retired from my senior corporate position in my mid-50s. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that financially. I don't miss the status or work environment and keep in touch with my close friends, many of whom I've known for decades. I have a husband, but what I have discovered is that I really enjoy my own company and have no problem being engrossed in my own interests. I do struggle still with accepting that it's okay to have an empty appointment calendar in a day, rather than running from one deadline or meeting to the next to feel productive. That's DRuby7793. That's the code. And, we had several like this. And I just want to give everyone a shout out because, there's Lee73. These are people who didn't just like the video, who actually sent in or who actually sent in comments. They gave me food for thought and enabled me to form a good general picture about what people feel about retirement. There's my friend Stefania Maroni. She says she loves to be retired and is enjoying free time to dedicate to family and hobbies. And I'm planning to meet Stefania in Venice later on this year so that we can go to the Biennale together. Let's just hope I'm able to sort out, the time and everything to do that. Can't wait to see her. So Stefania, glad you're enjoying your retirement. Wish I could join you in retirement, but sadly I'm still working. But I will try and take time off so we can go on holiday together before Christmas. Then there's Muse 1950 who says, I would enjoy not working in my mid-60s more if I had more friends. It seems the older I've gotten, the fewer friends I have. Making and keeping friends is a job in itself, and my energy reserves are reducing as I get older. That's a little bit sad, but it's very true. I mean, this summer I have lost 6 friends. I'm 64, so my friends are all roughly the same age, a bit younger, a bit older. And the older you grow, the more people you lose. So death reduces your social circle. And of course, you probably lose quite a few friends when you leave a workplace as well. And I find that, as you go from one school to another as a youngster, you always leave a few friends behind. You carry on with a few, you leave a few behind. And then, with life, you move house, you move to different countries, you move to different states or parts of the country. So, yeah, it is sad. And I'm sure this process is accelerated once you're in your 50s or 60s. So Muse 1950, please cheer up. I know how you feel. I mean, I've got fewer friends now than I did before, and it can be very lonely. Then there's User with lots of numbers and letters. And it says, the question of retirement is on my mind all the time. I've been in my job for 43 years now. And most mornings while getting ready, I wonder why I'm still doing it. But feel pretty good about it. The main concern is money. My little pension and limited savings would probably sustain me, but it's not enough to finance my current lifestyle. Then there's Pat Osmond, who's retiring next month and will be taking care of her older sister, who has dementia. So, Pat, I feel you. My mother had dementia. Good luck. It's not going to be easy. Stay in touch, please. And there's Mona Morgan, who worked as a nurse and also wrote to me. And so, hi, Mona. So I think that's all we're going to say about retirement for today. But this is a syndrome, a situation that will come up again and again, I dare say, in Donnie's world, because it's of a special interest to me because, at my age, I'm definitely in that retirement zone. And I'm very bitter that I'm still working to pay my bills. But, there you are. So, thank you very much for listening. I just want to alert my viewers to an upcoming new segment, which is going to be a week-by-week catalog of my battle to lose weight and improve my health and my appearance, and to just generally get my mojo back on every level. I mean, it's never too late to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And this new health and beauty and lifestyle and getting my mojo back thing is going to be on Wednesdays. So if you want to know how heavy I am now and watch me hopefully shedding weight every week, every month for the next foreseeable future, please check out Johnny's World new show on Wednesdays. Of course, this Friday show will continue, but there's now going to be an additional Wednesday show. So thank you. Bye.